Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. We're continuing our Pac-12 football predictions today, and our next team brings back one of the most dangerous quarterbacks in the nation, a new head coach, and will be a legit threat in the Pac-12 South. They are the Arizona Wildcats. The Kevin Sumlin era begins in Tucson, and he inherits a great team in his first year with the Wildcats, returning 7 starters on offense and 9 starters on defense, which is huge because Kevin Sumlin is more known as an offensive-minded coach. So returning 9 starters on the defensive side of the ball is going to be huge for Arizona this year. And I truly do believe this is an Arizona team that could really compete for the Pac-12 South title. They certainly have the talent. On offense, as we all know, going to be led by star dual-threat quarterback Khalil Tate, who was kind of thrust onto the scene somewhat early last year in that Colorado game and really sparked a huge turnaround for this Arizona offense. They were kind of stagnant before that. He came on there, did everything through the air, on the ground. It was really difficult for teams to stop him, but then over the last 3 games, including the bowl game against Purdue, teams kind of started to figure him out. They held him to just a combined, over those 3 games, 118 yards rushing. So that's going to be the key question this year is, are teams going to be more prepared for Khalil Tate, and will they shut him down? Will he not be that big of a factor on the ground? Was it just like a one-hit wonder thing, or will he still be extremely dangerous? And I think he will be, especially under this Kevin Sumlin offense, because we've seen what Sumlin has done with some of the better dual-threat quarterbacks over his career. They have returned JJ Taylor at the running back position, rushing for over 800 yards last year, so that's huge. They returned their leading wide receivers in Tony Ellison and Shun Brown and Sean Poindexter. So Khalil Tate is going to have plenty of help on this offensive side of the ball. If he can't get anything going, hand it off to JJ Taylor. You got to beat this team through the air. You've got 3 great wide receivers to do it. The only problem is they only return 2 returning offensive linemen. That's going to be the biggest key and biggest question mark for this Arizona offense. On defense, they return their leading tackler in Tony Fields at the linebacking position. They also return their second leading tackler at the linebacking position in Colin Schooler. They also have Lorenzo Burns and Jake Whitaker at the cornerback position. That is just 4 players and was going to be a very deep and very solid Arizona defense that returns 9 starters. And that is huge for this team that's going to have you pair a very solid defense up with a great offense and a dual-threat quarterback, and that makes for a very, very dangerous team. And they start off the season against a solid opponent at home against BYU. And BYU, a team that had a horrible year last year, going just 4-9. I have Kalani Sitake on the hot seat. We actually filmed our BYU predictions live from LaBelle Everett Stadium, so you can go check that out there for some analysis on that. But BYU, a team that has to stay healthy. They've got to keep their quarterback, especially in Tanner Mangum, healthy this year if they want to have any success. I believe it was 2 years ago that BYU beat Arizona 18-16. This year, I think Arizona does beat BYU at home. I just don't see BYU having enough talent, especially after that dismal year they had last year, coming back in week 1, going on the road to face a very solid Arizona team in Kevin Sumlin's debut. It just doesn't have enough signs pointing up for me to give the win to the Cougars. But I do think Arizona will lose on the road to Houston. And I know that is a group of 5 team, but by far one of the more dangerous group of 5 teams. Houston has a very solid dual-threat quarterback of their own in De'Aaron King, and if he doesn't work out, then you're going to have Quentin Dormady more than likely the transfer from Tennessee. Last year, Arizona lost to Houston 19-16 at home. This year, it is back at Houston, and here's going to be the kicker for Arizona. You've got to shut down Ed Oliver, who is probably the best defensive end in the entire nation. He's probably going to be the #1 overall pick in the NFL draft, we assume. And with 2 returning offensive linemen for Arizona this year, I don't know how they're going to pair up against Ed Oliver. I think he might have a pretty big day. If they can contain Khalil Tate in this game, Houston's going to get a win. It is at home, and I do like the Cougars in this one to get the win over the Wildcats. They go back home and get a win over Southern Utah. No worries there. And a win over Oregon State, a team that is really going to struggle in the first year of the Jonathan Taylor era, a team that has plenty of talent with 15 returning starters, but it's going to take some time. It's definitely going to be a rebuilding project for Jonathan Taylor. And in spite of being on the road, I think Arizona takes pretty easy care of this Beavers team. And then back at home against 2 very solid teams in USC and California. Last year, Arizona going on the road, losing to USC 49-35, so a big-time shootout. But USC, I believe, scored 34 unanswered points at one point. So it was pretty wrapped up fairly early on in that game. But this year, back at home for Arizona, and a USC team that loses their star power on the offensive side of the ball. Sam Darnold at quarterback, Ronald Jones at the wide receiving position, and Deontay Burnett at wide receiver. So that is a big sigh of relief for this Arizona defense. It's at home. USC has a solid defense, especially in the secondary position. I'm a little concerned on how well they're going to be able to shut down Khalil Tate. I think they get a win over the Trojans back at home. I think revenge comes into mind there because Arizona was a bit on a roll last year before losing to USC. And the Trojans, like I said, are going to have to find some replacements on the offensive side of the ball, and it's still fairly on in the season at this point. California, a team that Arizona only beat by 1 point last year, and this is the California team that Justin Wilcox has really built up. I really admire what he's doing there. 10 returning starters on the offensive side of the ball, including Ross Bowers at quarterback, who put up some great numbers last year. California, in my mind, is without a doubt a lock for a bowl game this year, but can they come on the road and beat Arizona? And I don't think they will. I know they've got a solid defense. Wilcox coming over as a believed defensive coordinator from Wisconsin, so he's going to know how to shut down Khalil Tate. It was a close game last year at California, but I think having home field on their side, and I think Arizona's defense is going to really step up in this game and get a win over the Golden Bears. So right now, if you look at here, they are just 5-1 entering the middle of October on the road against Utah. And this game has major Pac-12 South title implications, Pac-12 South conference standing implications. Utah, a team that I'm very high on this year. I have going 9-3. We also filmed our predictions at Utah live from Rice-Eccles Stadium. You can go check that out as well. But Utah, a team that returns Tyler Huntley at quarterback, returns Zach Moss at the running back position, has some solid wide receivers and 6 returning starters on the defensive side of the ball. Utah, a team that I really think has the potential to break through for their first Pac-12 title appearance. But it is on the road for Arizona, and I like Utah a lot this year. I think Arizona goes on the road, loses to the Utes. Last year, Arizona losing to Utah at home by just 6 points. So revenge certainly on Arizona's mind, but with it being on the road this year and Utah having a very strong team, much like they didn't really have a great strong team last year. They're just going 6-6, much better than they were last year. It's on the road, and I like Arizona to go on the road and lose this game. I think they're going to be a little bit down on themselves, get majorly upset on the road against UCLA and Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly is certainly going to get, at some point this season, is going to get his major significant win in year one as head coach with the Bruins. I don't know who he's going to come against, whether it be USC or Arizona or against somebody like that, but he will get the win over somebody. I think it's going to be Arizona here. It's on the road. UCLA, a team that I just don't see doing well at all this year. If you look at the talent that they bring back and the schedule they have to go up again, it is a brutal first year for Chip Kelly. But I like UCLA in this game more so because of their defense and shutting down this Arizona offense. And I think by this point, you're about halfway through the season, a little over halfway through the season. Their offense will eventually start clicking. Chip Kelly's going to get this offense going. UCLA, a very strong secondary, very strong linebacking core. They're able to bottle up the run game from Khalil Tate or JJ Taylor, and they get a big-time win over the Wildcats. Oregon, back at home. This is where, it's also homecoming. This is where Arizona picks things back up, get a big-time win over the Ducks, and this is going to be where their defense really steps up and comes through big, shutting down Justin Herbert for Oregon. Back at home, it's homecoming. Khalil Tate has a pretty big day over this Oregon defense. I believe returned 7 stars. Jim Leavitt doing a great job there as defensive coordinator for the Ducks. But I think Arizona's going to be able to get the job done over Oregon, a team that I do think is going to be very dangerous in the Pac-12 North. Colorado back at home as well. Colorado, a team that, yes, went to the Pac-12 Championship just 2 years ago, went 5-7 last year, nearly missed out on the bowl, but is going to have to really pick up the pace on offense if they want to have a chance of getting back to a bowl game this year. I think they will do that, but it is at home for Arizona, and I just don't see them losing to the Buffaloes. But remember last year, that was the big breakout game for Khalil Tate. He came in against Colorado and won that game. They only ended up winning 45-42, so a 3-point win for Arizona last year on the road. I think they definitely get the job done back at home this year. A bye week going into Washington State. Even though it is on the road, I think Arizona does go on the road and get a win here against the Cougars. I would be more weary and definitely be leaning more towards the Cougars' way. They still have Luke Falk and some of their big playmakers on the offensive side of the ball, but they lose them, and Mike Leach definitely has his work cut out for him this year. I just think Arizona beating Washington State by 21 last year with a much better Washington State team, even though it is on the road, are going to have a pretty easy win over the Cougars this season. And then closing out the year against Arizona State, their big-time rival, as always, Herm Edwards coming in as head coach for the Sun Devils, a hire that I really like. An intriguing matchup here. You got Kevin Sumlin versus Herm Edwards. Never think we'd say that name, those two names in the same sentence going up against each other, but here we go. Arizona State returning a great quarterback like Khalil Tate and Manny Wilkins. This is going to be probably a big test for this Arizona defense to defend the pass because Manny Wilkins is one heck of a quarterback. They're going to have to really rely on their secondary in this game, but it is at home. Arizona State only returns 4 stars on the defensive side of the ball, and they have a head coach that is new. Like Arizona has a new head coach, but this coach hasn't been in college football since I can't even remember the last time Herm Edwards coached in some level in the college football vicinity. So I don't think Arizona State's going to be able to come on the road, have enough for the Wildcats. It might be a fun game to watch, no doubt, though. And that's going to give Arizona an 9-3 record, which isn't bad. And they're still in contention for the Pac-12 Championship because they have 3 losses, 2 of them, though, just coming in conference play. One of those is a non-conference loss to Houston. So Arizona, depending on how the chips fall with USC and Utah, who I think are their biggest competitors in the South Division, could break through to the Pac-12 Championship in Kevin Sumlin's first year with the Wildcats. And it's certainly going to be a very exciting and a very fun year to watch. A very fun team to watch this year, especially with Khalil Tate at the helm at the quarterback position. So as always, please go check us out on Twitter at Gridiron Expert, on Instagram at The Gridiron Expert, and always here on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time on the Gridiron Expert.